Welcome to the Keith B. Dixon Zone, dropping photography knowledge all day long. Right? Welcome to the Kilo Bravo Delta Zone podcast. It's official. You're in the Keith B. Dixon Zone for another podcast broadcast. I want to thank you for listening and supporting this broadcast. It's been listeners like you that inspire me to grow and provide more content for your enjoyment. As you know, this past May, we were at Exposure 101 in Detroit. This was the last year it was free, but it was a free photography conference. All you had to do was register, basically show up, and you were going to get some high level, high quality, high octane education. And I got to tell you, it was great to say the least. During Exposure, I had an opportunity to sit down with some of the speakers and talk with them not only about what they were doing, but where they were headed in the future and how they saw education, and just a lot of questions about their careers and some things about their personal lives. And with Matthew, it was a very interesting conversation, to say the least, because we really took a deep dive on what education means and how it inspires you to create better images. So let me give you the backstory on Matthew. He was born in New York, so he's a New York native, and he's known for his work on America's Top Model. And if you're not familiar with America's Top Model, that was a show that Tyra Banks produced and appeared in, and was very popular. He's also appeared in Fine, The Basics of Beauty, that was 2009, and A Heart's Journey 2013. And if you didn't know, he was also the set photographer for Soul Food. So Matthew has definitely been around Hollywood a while. Now, he's also photographed A-listers like Oprah, Samuel L. Jackson, and other high-powered executives all around the world. Matthew has definitely touched a lot of people with his images, and you, without even knowing, you may have seen a lot of his images in Ebony Magazine and a lot of other publications across America. Matthew has done a lot. And if you don't know, well, this is going to be obvious. Matthew is a photography educator. He's appeared on Creative Live, and as I mentioned before, he's just completed a 28-city tour that started here on the West Coast and will end up in Europe with 2 stops in Amsterdam and London. So he's on the move, and I got to tell you, every day I would talk to him, or every other day or every other week, he was in a completely different city. So it was pretty amazing to see him go through that. And that was one of the things I've enjoyed about seeing Matthew's growth in his career, is he's always pushing himself to the edge. And I got to love that about him. So he has a new photography program called the Photography Lighting Course, and we call it PLC Nation because it is definitely a worldwide program. So he's got people in the program from all over the world. It's a pretty amazing program. He's also an author, a published author. He published, his last book was Future American President, and that was a pretty amazing project, to say the least. And he also has work on display in the Smithsonian National African American Museum of History and Culture. Unbelievable. Yes, it is. This guy has taken on the world of photography with a storm. He's a Nikon ambassador, recipient of the Exposure 101 Legends Award. Matthew Jordan Smith. This is our interview. Enjoy.
How you doing, man? How's it going?
Oh my goodness, Matthew. You moved to Japan.
Yes.
And how's that been so far?
Amazing, man. Amazing in a major way. Konnichiwa.
Look at that. So tell me about this move. Like, how has it affected your photography journey? Tell us about that.
Well, everything in your life inspires your work. As an artist, as a photographer, we're inspired by the things around us, the things we see, the things we experience. I went to Japan the first time in 1999, just on a whim, actually, on vacation, and I fell in love with the place, and it's still there. I've been easily, 30 times over the years, and I said, you know what? It's my favorite place in the world. I'm gonna make that home, and I'm so happy I did.
Oh my goodness. How's it been with the language barrier in photography? Is that a factor?
It is. You've got to learn. I mean, you're emerging at number one, being there, but you've got to learn how to read, write, and speak. But when you're thrown in that situation, it starts coming to you. So I'm in that process of still learning. As a matter of fact, when I finish the tour and get back, I'm diving into a emergency session of learning how to speak. I've got to. It's a must. It's a must.
Tell us about the tour that you're on right now. 28 cities.
It's insane. Yes. So in the next 2 months, I'm doing 28 cities around the world: Canada, the U.S., and then ending in Europe. It's called the Next Level Photography Workshop. And what's different about this workshop, I've been doing photography now for 30 years. And I remember being a young photographer and being hungry to find out about, photography just to learn. So I remember going to workshops and seminars and sitting there and getting all this information. And for the most part, every workshop I've ever been to was focused on just the tech, learning the gear, learning lighting, all this stuff around the other aspects of photography that we all think about and love. It's one thing to know about how to use the gear, how to use the lights, what light to get, what camera to get, what lens to get. All those things are important. But listen, your clients don't care about what you're using. They care about something more important. So in this workshop, I break up in 2 parts. The first part is a full day workshop from 9 to 5. And the first hour, I just go over what they're going to learn. After that, we are up and we are working. And that first part of the day is dedicated to the gear, to lighting. I go over lighting extensively because I think lighting, especially today, is what's made my career and what will make other photographers' career. You've got to learn how to master it. And then the second part of the day, I call it Beyond the Gear. And I think that is the most important part of learning photography, learning how to have not just learning how to make a great picture, learning how to have a career, an amazing career in photography. And I've got to say, man, it's been an amazing journey already. We're 10 cities in, 10, 11, I forget now. It's going by so fast. And I've met some amazing people all over Canada, all over the U.S. and parts already. It's been incredible and almost a spiritual experience in some ways, because we leave each city and I have all these brand new friends in each place now because we finished the workshop at 5 and nobody wants to go home.
Wow.
It's kind of cool to see that, experience it. Yesterday we were in, where were we yesterday? We were in St. Louis yesterday. We were in Ohio before that. Day before that we were in Minnesota and Toronto. And it ends and people are so hyped.
Right.
They don't want to go. And my coordinator has to okay guys, we've got to pack, break down into the next city. But it was incredible. We're having an amazing time. Yesterday was fantastic.
So, there's a lot of amazing things about you. There's a lot that I have come to know and learn. And I was surprised at this because I have the book, and and that's partly the reason why I know about this one particular photographer, Gregory Heisler. He's legendary.
Yes,
You were Gregory Heisler's assistant. I mean,
yes.
Tell us what that was. What did you extract from that? Because obviously you are very, I like to say progressive. I don't say successful. Successful is temporary in my book. I like to say progressive. You are very progressive as a photographer and relevant. How much of that do you attribute to being around Gregory Heisler and seeing his processes?
I attribute 100% of it being around all my mentors, Gregory Heisler, Neil Barr, all these photographers who I worked for as an assistant. My education was going to art school, majoring in photography. But then in art school, I had a professor say, the best photographers in the world are in places like New York and London and Paris. And if you want to be in that group, go and work as an assistant to one of them. I went to New York City, worked as an assistant for 3.5, 4 years. And that was my real training, working for amazing photographers, traveling the world on big assignments and seeing them under pressure and learning from them as they're in the field. Not just theory, but seeing the entire job come together. The pre-production, the the actual production of the shoot, seeing how they work with the different clients. And what was great about this education for me, I got to work for a lot of different photographers, and I saw people who were technically amazing photographers, but not working as much. And so others who were also technically great, but had that something extra, and saw them have amazing success. So that was critical for my growth, and worked for people like Gregory Heisler and Neil Barr and all the other wonderful photographers I worked for was my real education. It taught me everything. It's why I have a career.
If you had to push the redo button, would you still be a photographer?
Absolutely. I love this. I was in the workshop yesterday when we're shooting, and I was on a high, and the whole room was on a high. It's so crazy because after the workshop, I get all these new friends. I mean, they leave a different person. So I tell everybody, when you come to this workshop, you're not just going to learn photography or learn lighting. And you will learn those things in a better way, in a new way. But you're also going to leave a different person, guaranteed.
You know, Matthew, I need the secret sauce. I need the formula. I need the recipe. The people that are listening right now, they want to be you, and we need that secret formula. Can you give it to us right now?
Absolutely. Number one, you've got to be passionate about photography. You've got to be passionate about photography. Let's do a little experiment right now.
Okay.
For a moment, and everybody who's listening to this podcast, close your eyes and think back to the first picture you ever made. See that picture in your mind. Now, if you can remember that one picture, think back to how you felt. What was that moment when you said, wow, I think I want to become a photographer? Think back to that picture and think back to that feeling you had, the excitement you had, the desire to be a photographer. That feeling is part of what I call your special sauce.
Wow.
And you learn how to use it by getting the training, by learning how to figure out what's different about you. Now, when you learn photography, we all learn to see things one way. We all learn to deal with the foundation of photography.
Right.
Learn about shutter speed, aperture, and ISO. And that is the foundation. You can't skip it. You've got to know those things if you want to have a career. You can pass that and make great pictures, but you won't have a great career. You can't skip the foundation. But I go much deeper than just talking about the foundation in the course, in the workshop. It's just all the things that have given me a 30-year career. And I tell everybody at the start of my workshops, I'm not going to hold back. I make a promise to them for the day that I'm going to tell everything, teach everything that I know about photography in that day. But then I ask them to make me a promise as well. And the promise to me, I want them all to promise to use the information that I teach within the next 5 days.
Wow.
It's one thing to go somewhere and see something, hear it. It's another thing to go somewhere and do it. So in my workshops, people are shooting, they're working, I'm working with them. It's the experience of, that on-the-job training.
Right.
That's what this workshop is.
How do you see, outside of yourself, we're gonna extract your workshop out, and tell me how do you see other workshops in terms of maybe your own personal experience? You've gone to some workshops, what you're seeing now that you don't like.
Well, I don't like, for sure, when photographers just show their work and almost say how great I am as a photographer. That's not doing anything for anybody. I want to make sure that I'm always giving, and they leave a better photographer, a better person, thinking differently than they did when they first walked in. We all get fan mail, for sure, but sometimes you get hate mail as well.
Oh, yeah. That's
And,
true.
I know it shouldn't bug me, but sometimes it does. I haven't gotten hate mail in a long time, but I did recently. I've had one this year, and it really upset me. And I made a commitment to myself that day that whoever comes to any workshop I do, they're going to leave feeling that I gave them everything that I had to give.
The leverage, yeah.
Absolutely.
I think that's really important. As a photographer, for me, starting out, I was always one of the reasons why I started teaching was because I was disappointed most of the time at most of the workshops. I came up in photography when it was the rock star age,
Yes.
and
Yes.
that was painful, because everybody wanted to shoot like the rock star, and there were few and far. Joe McNally, for instance, he was one of the I call him fibers. He was one of the fibers. I followed him.
He's an amazing photographer.
Amazing teacher. So those were the people that I followed and I stayed with. And as you can see, still around. A lot of the rock stars are gone.
Absolutely.
So, Matthew, I'm going to ask you this question, and we're going to role play a little bit.
All right. I'm down for that.
Matthew, I want to be a rock star photographer. I want to be like you. I want to shoot celebrities. How are you going to respond to someone like that?
Wow, because I get that question a lot. Matthew, how can I be a celebrity photographer? And I say, that's the wrong motivation. You can't desire just to be a celebrity photographer or a rock star. That's the wrong reason to go into photography. You got to be a photographer because you love the art, because you love the experience. And then just work on doing your best work, not work for the fame.
Right.
I remember years ago doing my first book. I did photographs and interviews, and one of the people in the book is Samuel L. Jackson. And I asked him almost that same question, and he told me, for him, it was never about fame. It was about the work. It's the same thing in photography. It's not about fame. The fame comes when you do great work. The goal should always be to do great work. And then everything comes, more than you could ever dream. My goal at the start of my career was just to do fashion and beauty. And then from that, everything else came. I was doing fashion and beauty, and then editors saw the work and hired me to shoot celebrities based on the work I was doing in fashion and beauty. And that's led to everything in my career.
Wow. Let's talk about some difficult things in photography that people generally cover up. Money. Let's talk about money. I know you can relate to this. So, when I first started out in photography, I struggled financially for years, and even I will. I'm going to go on record right here, and I'm going to say even now, we're operating at a high level, but so is the income, and we have to maintain that high level, and that can be a struggle all in itself. Let's drill this down.
Absolutely. So that's a great one, because here's the thing: the struggle is good. It's not supposed to be easy. If everybody can just go into photography and do well financially right away, you kind of take that for granted. It's good to have the ups and the downs, so you appreciate everything that happens. And if you're not in love with photography, if it's not your passion, when you have those hard times, you may quit. That's, I think, the universe trying to figure out how passionate you are about photography. Now, when it comes to making money in photography, you've got to do things differently. You've got to learn how to figure out the problems. Photography is evolving. It's not staying still, and it never will. And that means, as a photographer, you've got to evolve too and change. And sometimes that change happens so fast, it gets you off guard. There's a point when I was taking things for granted because all of the jobs were coming in, and at a point, I took it for granted. And then there was a shakeup in photography when it changed from film to digital, and it became easy for people to just buy a camera, not learn about photography, and start making a living. But that won't last if you don't have a firm foundation. The foundation does everything. And you've also got to be smart about your money and think about your investment in you. There are a lot of photographers who want to learn everything for free. And then they want to take that free, education and make $1 million. That just doesn't work. It's never worked.
I like that.
There has to be some investment in you. There has to be an investment in the craft. It's just the way the universe works. So the more you invest in you, the better your return. The more you seek knowledge, the better the return. And the thing about photography, you never stop learning. I learn from my assistants. They learn from me. It's this give and take. But the beauty is, no matter where you are, when you're up, when you're down, you should still love photography. And that will get you through any hard time. You've got to learn how to make your work stand out. Now, I get it. I know there's more photographers now than there's ever been in the history of photography. It's easy to get into it. It's not easy to make a living. That's why I'm doing this tour, to share those secrets that I've learned over the years. And you learn them by going through those ups and those downs and learning how to navigate your way and make it in any environment. So don't worry about the downs. You can turn everything around if you just learn how to make your work stand out. So really, with my workshop, that's exactly what I'm teaching, how to make people make their work stand out. It's that next level, which is why it's called the Next Level Workshop.
I definitely I want to talk about this workshop thing a little bit more, and the reason why is because I've actually seen you teach, and I'm not going to say the name, obviously, but I saw you at a workshop, and it was for assistants, and they were breaking down lights and setting them up, and I saw, I got to tell you, Matthew, this really made me a believer because I saw how technical you really were with the angle of light, the measurement, just everything, where you were standing, how you were cutting your light, and that really made me a believer. And if you had to look back on your career and put a percentage number on the word technical as it relates to everything you've accomplished, what would that number be?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. I take that for granted now almost because I'm definitely very technical in terms of being precise. As an assistant and shooting film and having that education, we learned to be precise. Today, people aren't precise. And I think there's a huge difference in being successful. I use a light meter. Now, I know that's not popular. I know that people love just depending on the histograms to find out an exposure, or looking at the back of the camera to tell if it's in a great exposure. That's just a guess. You don't stand out by guessing. Now, yes, okay, histograms give you a ballpark, and you get what looks like a good exposure, and it is. But it's not enough information. Having a light meter and knowing exactly where the light is, and then more importantly, knowing where the light isn't, where the shadows are, where the shadows aren't, all that stuff is extremely important. Learning how to see light, that's a huge deal. People take that for granted now. A lot of photographers only shoot in natural light. As a matter of fact, I'll say most photographers only shoot in natural light. That's what everybody's doing because that's so easy.
Right.
Or if they use a strobe, they use a softbox because that's so easy. But the easy way doesn't lead to an amazing career. You've got to learn how to see light, and then you learn how to manipulate, I can't talk today, how to manipulate the light and make it amazing.
How do you approach, let's say you're on location, you're location shooting, and I know you guys go through production meetings, and but what we do in a production meeting doesn't always equate to what's going to happen on location.
That's very true. That's very true.
How do you tell us about your thought process as you're standing behind the camera and the exposure that you thought you were going to get is now 5 stops off? What are you doing at that point? And it changed on a dime. What's your thought process at that point?
It's funny. So let me first, before I answer that question, go back and really give you an answer to your last question about the percentage in terms of
there we go.
the technical. I think the technical is probably, I'll say, 35%, 40%.
Really?
Yeah, that's it.
Wow.
The rest is the important stuff. You've got to have you've got to have a firm grip on the technical for sure.
Right.
That's about 30% of 35% of being a photographer. I know we all think it's 90%, 95%, 100% of being a photographer. It's not at all. We think that as a young photographer, I thought that. Clients who hire you they don't care about that. It's so much more to photography. Now, you've got to have that 30% down, and a lot of people don't. You've got to have that down. But the other stuff is even more important, and you learn that when you start working as a photographer. Your clients don't care if you're shooting a different brand of camera. They don't care if you're shooting with a Nikon or with a Canon or a Sony or whatever camera. They don't care about that or what light you're using. Other photographers care about that.
Right.
But your clients who are hiring you, they don't care about that. They want something else.
That's, I'm not surprised. I created a process called, and I'm actually going to be talking about this at exposure during my photo walk. It's called the creative zone. You've probably heard me talk about it a million times. And there's a step that I call outward focus. And outward focus speaks to everything that you just said, which is, let's get away from the camera now. You know what, I'm going to say now that outward focus is that 35%. You've already solved that problem. You're away from the camera now, and you're totally connecting with your environment. Is that safe? Can we say that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You're right there. It's that creative zone. It's that zone that you fall into. As a matter of fact, when you are in that zone, the tech becomes something that just is almost like automatic. You don't think about it. All of your energy turns into that creative zone. That's when you make magic. Listen, let's say you have a technically perfect picture. Technically. Then you have on the other side a picture that's not so technically perfect, but it's got all that other stuff in it. That other stuff makes for a much more successful picture. And the person who masters that other stuff will have more success. Now, when you merge that technical and that other stuff together, you have an amazing career.
Wow. I've never had that. I've never had that presented like that. And I remember, I like to say my fellow podcasters. I saw you on I listened to you on the Candid Frame with Ibadi and Next.
Yes.
And, I've listened to a lot of your interviews, and is this a new evolution of Matthew Jordan Smith that I'm hearing right here? Because when I listened to Matthew Jordan Smith before, we would hear a lot of the philosophies, but this is new. You're talking about light. You're talking about feeling it, getting away from the camera. Am I hearing this correctly?
I'm not sure if it's new. Maybe I'm just being more, aware of it to share it more. I never thought in photography that I'd be teaching, but I've learned over the years that I really enjoy it. And the process of teaching reminds me of my beginning, the path. And sometimes you can forget that stuff. When you're shooting all the time, you can take a lot of things for granted. Teaching reminds you of everything, the things that you forgot that you felt in the beginning of your career. And now that I have this ability to, share what I love and shoot, I know it's important to teach every aspect of photography, not just the technical. That's a small part of it.
I've got one more topic for you, Matthew.
That's cool.
We're gonna dive out of here, and I want to talk about fright.
Oh yeah,
I want to talk about fright,
Good.
and I want to tie it into personal projects. Personal projects are frightening, especially when you're traveling to, a whole new environment.
Oh,
It could
yeah.
be 2 cities away. It's a whole new environment. That could be frightening. I had an opportunity to work with you on a project, and I was frightened myself. I was frightened. I'll be the first one to admit it. And I even got to the point where I just didn't think I could do it. I'm gonna admit to that. I'm a very transparent kind of guy. It's on my sleeve. I just didn't think I could do it. And I dug deep down inside and I said to myself, you know what? I got, this has got to happen. And I started really saying that back to myself. Can you talk about a point in your career where you said the same thing, and tell us how you got out of it? What did you do?
Wow. There's been many points like that in my career. The fear is real. And I now know it's part of you going down that road to success. You've got to have this point where you fear that next step. And we all have it. Maybe you fear, moving to a new state. Maybe you fear, buying a new camera. Maybe you fear, how if you make this investment in this camera and this gear and this workshop, will it pay off? You never get the fruit unless you go out on a limb and invest in yourself. Believe in yourself. But let's get back to the fear thing. It's part of it. The road to success is paved with those bricks of fear. You've got to go through that. I think, it's part of every artist, every entrepreneur's journey. You fear what may happen if you do this thing or if you don't do this thing. The truth is, there is no what if. It's what you do and what you don't do.
Wow.
You can't let the fear stifle you. Now, I did a book project where I went to every state in the country and photographed 100 children, 100 strangers. There were like 3 children in the book that I knew. The rest I didn't. Now, the fear factor for me was the idea of approaching strangers. I'm a big black man going around America and trying to ask, strangers of all backgrounds, can I photograph their children? The idea that sounds insane, right?
Yep.
And the fear of that almost talked me out of doing that project. That was a personal project, by the way. But then once I started the project, it was the fear that was much worse than the reality. I did the project, and I was probably turned down maybe 20 times throughout the entire United States. That's it.
Cool.
And most of that came at the very end of the project. So the fear is real. I get it. I know we're all fearful about something or the other when it comes to, going on the line and going past that safe zone. The safe zone is like, okay, I'll do this, job and I'm guaranteed this. That's not photography. Photography is you going out on a limb a little bit if you want to get that fruit.
What would you say to someone who says, fear is, they're using an acronym, false evidence appearing real. Fear is this. I mean, what would you say to someone like that?
They're not working for themselves for sure. I think that the fear is part of it. You've got to go through it. We all have it.
Yeah.
The fear keeps you alive and keeps you in love with what you're doing. And that fear is the universe testing you to see how badly you want something. Now, trust me, I've had tons of fear in my career. I feared going to New York to be an assistant. But what if I didn't do that? I wouldn't have had that career. I had friends at that same time when I first started assisting who thought being an assistant was a waste of time. They thought they could just go into photography. This is back in going back 30 years now. I had a friend who was coming at the same time as me. He did not want to spend time, he said, wasting time being an assistant. He wanted to start shooting right away.
Wow.
he never became a photographer. Never. Because he wouldn't make that commitment to his craft of learning the basics, then learning the business, then learning the pre-production, then learning how to be a photographer.
So when you think back on your beginnings, I mean, I'm going to say that you did everything the right way.
Well, not everything. Well, you learn the hard way sometimes.
Yeah, it reflects in your progress. So we're going to say, there might have been some times where you were blown off course or whatever the case may be, but for the most part, you did everything well. When people look at you, how would you? Because this is how we see you. Matthew did everything right. He's worked with some of the top people in the country. How do you really see yourself?
Wow. Definitely not like that, because I know the reality. They haven't done everything right. You learn from your mistakes the same way you learn from, those around you. And for me, it has been this progression. You're always evolving as a photographer. You don't stay one place. You either get better or you lose something. So you got to always educate yourself all the time. But you don't have to know everything. People have this illusion that to be a photographer, that means you know everything about photography. That's not true. And you don't need to. Now, it's great to know as much as you can about the industry, about the tech, but you don't need to know everything. You need to know what you want to focus on and work to perfect that part of photography. That's what matters.
Can you tell the audience about the work that you have on display in the Smithsonian? How does something like that happen? Number one, and number two, when you were making that image, did you realize that this was going to happen?
I definitely had no clue. I think every job, every shoot that I do, even the shoot that I did yesterday, you strive to hopefully make an iconic image. And you do that by being in touch with everything that's going on around you, by giving your best all the time. So the picture I have in the Smithsonian right now is a picture of the cast from Waiting to Exhale, the movie that came out in the late 90s or mid 90s. So the cast was Whitney Houston, Angela Bassett. The book was written by Terry McMillan. Mm-hmm. So it's an all-star cast, and I'm shooting the cast for the movie with the authors. The first time it's the entire cast with the author. Just the stars, not the whole cast, sorry. It's just the stars, the main 5 stars. And we're having a great time shooting. And at the end of the shoot, I said, I just want a picture of everybody together, hugging, with your eyes closed.
Oh, wow.
Because it was the moment. It was like there was this energy in the room where we were all connected. It was beautiful. And I want to capture that moment. And I had them all stop for a moment, close their eyes, and just hug. And it's the most powerful picture of the day. It's not about the tech. That picture was all about the energy, and people feel it. Now, when I shot it, I thought it was special. In the magazine, they were using it for the cover. It was used a lot. And then, here we are 20 years later. The Smithsonian's like, okay, we want to commission this picture for the next 10 years. It just happens. Everything happens in my career based on you doing the work, doing your best work, putting you into each and every assignment. And then everything else happens around it.
Okay, let me throw you a curveball.
Throw it.
You make great images. And if, I didn't know any better and I had an opportunity to be in front of you, I would want you to really validate me with I'm going to bring my work in. And Matthew said it was, matter of fact, I'm going to digress. So let me digress a little bit, and then we're going to come back to this point. I don't know if you remember this. This was a long time ago. You were doing some photo critiques, and people were bringing in their folders, and I came up to you, and I had an iPad, and I stood there for probably an hour watching you. and really trying to get my courage up to say, hey, would you critique my image? Because it's in front of all these people. And I walked up to you and I said, hey, I don't have a portfolio, but will you look at my image on this iPad? And you said yes. And you looked at it and you were like, wow, okay. And you looked at me and you said, brother, you're on your way, right? And I walked away not thinking, wow, Matthew said that. I walked away like, he just validated my image.
That's important. I think it's important to do that for everybody. I've watched people tear photographers apart doing reviews. And I hate that. I want to give criticism at points, but constructive criticism. I want to make sure I'm not just saying how I feel about an image, or better yet, I don't want to say how I would do an image. I want to give an image, I want to give them a critique that's going to help them make their image. And that's very important because I've watched other photographers do reviews and they give photographers advice based on how they would do an image. And I think that's very wrong. I think it's best when you find what's great about that person, that photographer, you critique it, but give them information at the same time that can help them become better in making their image, not my image.
I totally agree with you on that. In my Bomb Squad community, we don't call them critiques. It's called a review. Only select people can do it. And one of the things that I was concerned about with reviews, and with people doing reviews, is it can tear you apart for a long time. I mean, it could really stop you in your tracks. And I definitely take a completely different approach. The approach generally is why did you do this? What were you thinking? Did you think about possibly doing this? What was your theme? To get people, I think when we get people thinking about what they're doing, as opposed to I'm just going to run out there and push the button and hey, look what I did. I think it just makes for a better photography industry, and
absolutely,
and we're more productive.
I agree with that. I agree,
Matthew. I want to thank you for your time. Before we go, I definitely have to ask you about Exposure 101.
Yes.
And what that, with a 20, and don't say because of me, right? That's the easy way.
No easy way out.
No easy way out. 28 cities. And you decide, your flight left this morning. Matter of fact, we were texting each other. We were messaging each other at 3 o'clock in the morning. Now, you might have been in a different time zone.
I was. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning for me.
Right? So I know what is driving you to do, because Matthew, when I saw you were on tour, I was like, okay, I better get ready for the possibility that he might say, Keith, this is going to be too much. What is driving you to be here?
I could not do this because, yes, this tour is grueling. It's 28 cities in 2 months. I'm like in each city, a different city every 2 days, basically. And we're flying all over America, Canada, Europe. It's an intense tour schedule. But to be able, I've never done this before in my career. I've never taken the time off of my career to do a tour. Now, I'll probably never do it again. I want to be able to do this now and give back to my community, to the world of photography, to the next generation of photographers, because that is so important. I think it would be a disservice for me just to just shoot and put all my effort into shooting for me. That's a little selfish. Now, I get it. We got to make a living, but photography has been good to me. And to be honest, I love to be able to get out and see photographers who are where I was at the start of my career, just hungry to learn. It feels good to share. It feels really good to share. Now, I love shooting. That's my passion. But I also love teaching, I discovered, and having that connection with people. at the heart of photography, it's about a connection. When I was shooting film, I had the connection with other photographers by going to the lab, by going to print. And when we went to digital, I kind of lost that a little bit. I didn't see photographers or had that interaction. When I teach it, when I go on tour like this, I get to meet photographers. And we all talk the same language. And it's, man, it's this tour, as grueling as the schedule is, it is so fulfilling in ways that I cannot express. I meet other photographers. We talk about everything. They ask questions, and we get to connect. And I see them as the light bulb is turned on. That's amazing.
It is, and I got to tell you, that's my selfish reason for teaching. I want to see the light bulb turn on.
It's very cool.
And I think it'd be a cop out for us. Just like we could go live our lives and do what we do, but I don't think that would be as fun as being out here on the road. Seeing people say thank you. You know what, Matthew? You think we could make a living off of you help me to become a better photographer? I mean, when I say make a living, you think we could cash that at the bank?
Yeah, I think people always want to learn. Knowledge definitely is something that we will always want to have.
Yes.
The more you have, the better you can do, for sure.
Yes.
To share the joy that we have when we shoot, that whole process. I mean, to make a living as a photographer is a wonderful thing.
Isn't it a blessing?
Wonderful thing? When you can do that, it gives you freedom.
It does.
I mean, I now live in Tokyo, the place I've always wanted to live. And I have the freedom to do that. I have the freedom to live anywhere in the world, go anywhere in the world, based on photography. If I can share how others can do that, if you want to take 6 vacations a year, you can do that if you just go through the steps. So what I love about the teaching, I get to slow things down and go step by step. Now, I've watched people as they've taught before, and they skip over all these things because you take things for granted.
Right.
It's good when you can stop yourself and break things down step by step and show people the process. And then give them the ability to ask questions. That is so, so cool. I love that.
Tell us about your PLC Nation and where that's going, how we can get to it, and where do we find Matthew George? Is it Twitter? Is it Facebook? Tell us how we can find you?
I'm definitely on all the social media. I'm on Instagram, Matthew Jordan Smith. Find me there. I'm on there a lot, as a matter of fact, on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. I'm now on a new one called Vero as well. I'm on Facebook. So I'm all on social media for sure. But my PLC stands for Photography Lighting Course. I started this course a year ago. Wow, it's been a year. Now, I began the course, it was the idea of just teaching lighting, specifically teaching lighting exactly the way I learned how to light. So I go, when I teach, it's impossible to teach everything I've learned in 30 years in a day or a week or in a month. So my PLC course, photography lighting course, I have an online course where I've broken it down step by step and teach lighting the same way I learned it. I have these modules, or chapters if you want to call them chapters, and you can access it from your phone, from an iPad, from a desktop. Anytime you get online, you can access it from anywhere and take the course. And you have assignments in the course as well, and you can take it at your own pace. But the course was released that first way like that, and it was doing well. But what was missing is I wasn't having the connection with all the students. Now, again, when I first opened the course, I thought it was students from around America.
Right.
But word got around, and it's like maybe 50% students in America, and the rest are from all over the globe, from Bulgaria and Austria and Germany and South of France and Israel and Brazil, the Caribbean and England, the rest of the UK. it's all over the world. Japan, of course. It's cool to see people come together in that way. So what was missing for me was having people rush through the course and skip steps. So I said, okay, they're going too fast. I want to make sure people get it. So I started doing a weekly live training session just for the students. And it has blown up. I love it. They love it. So once a week, I do a 1 hour live training session just for my students. It's a private course, so they come in, they get the course, they join in the lessons, and people are so excited every week for the next live session. In the live session, I can break them down, give them assignments, and really take it step by step and see if they're getting it. They can ask me questions live. It's just a great thing. And I get my community.
Yes, and that's and yes, I think that's really important that you develop community as a photographer, especially at your level. It's almost a demand that you have that, because
and Keith, I love it because I can teach this anywhere in the world. So
yes.
I live in Tokyo.
Yes,
I teach it wherever I am. I'm on the road doing 28 cities. I still do my 1 hour weekly session every week. As a matter of fact, I have one tomorrow morning with my students. Before I go down to speak, I'm doing my 1 hour session with the PLC Nation.
Wow. And I'm in there. I periodically will watch. It just it depends on the schedule. And I got to tell you, it's the buzz is really good.
It is. We have a lot of fun there. I love seeing people when they get it.
Yes. And the work that they're producing, it's like, oh my goodness. And the
work that they're producing. Yeah. That's just so cool to see. And see it every week and see them grow. That's what's really cool, to see each and every student grow, to have a problem, to not understand one thing, and the next week they get it.
You know what's interesting though? I've actually seen you grow. I can witness this firsthand. I've seen your social media grow to where it is, and I got to tell you, it's almost amazing. It just dawned on me. Your social media has really grown. I mean, you've actually developed a community. You know that's difficult to do.
Yes.
It's a good, responsive community. There's communities out there with tons of people and big numbers, but you couldn't get them to go to the grocery store for with a good coupon. So when I look at the PL, they are reactive. They're waiting. Matter of fact, I think. Just the other day, somebody had posted, "Is Matthew going to be on?" And I actually got one of the other admins actually contacted me, in this urgency voice and said, "Hey Keith, is Matthew going to, be on?" And everybody's waiting. Yeah, that is a great. It's not even a problem. That's just a great situation to have. So whatever you're doing, you should definitely do it. We're going to conclude right here. I want to thank you, Matthew. Did you have a question for me?
Well, I just want to give people. I want to give a gift to everybody.
Oh.
So, and also if they're interested in joining PLC, I'll share more information about that. But I have a gift for everybody who's listening. I want to give people the gift that one of my mentors gave me. So, at the start of my career, I thought it was all about the gear. I wanted to get more gear. And one photographer told me, "Matthew, slow it down. Just get one light first." I'm like, "Well, I can afford to get 3 lights now." He says, "Okay, that's cool. We'll buy you 3 lights, but only use one for a while. Use that one, use it in as many ways as possible." I'm like, "Okay, I can do that." And that's what I did. I started using one light and I learned how to master it. So my free gift to everybody is this one short video, 10 ways to use one light source.
Oh, wow.
So this video they can just get by going to MatthewJordansmith.com/free.
Literally 10 steps.
10 ways to use one light source.
If I apply, because I'm going to use the word apply. I'm not even going to say down. We're assumed that it's downloaded. I've got my light set up. I'm going to have 10 ways to use one light.
Absolutely.
At my disposal.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. You guys, thank you so much. This has been, I'm going to say, definitely a progressive Kilo Bravo Delta Zone, the Keith B. Dixon Zone podcast. I hope you guys have enjoyed Matthew's time and his knowledge as well. Matter of fact, I'm going to tell you that you should probably be in a position right now to apply everything that you just heard. And I think they should be producing really good images at this point after they apply everything that you just said. Is that a fair statement?
That is fair.
Okay, so that's going to be our leverage. You guys know I like to leverage. So thank you, and I will see you guys next week in the Kilo Bravo Delta Zone. Thank you for listening.